So, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the School of Arts and Humanities. So, in collaboration with the MATE Association of Teachers of English, the Regional Directorate of Education, the Research Group on Applied Linguistics and Language Teaching, we are organizing today a forum entitled New Horizons in Education. And we have invited guest speakers from Rabat and Casablanca, Kenitra and Meknes. And we were planning also to receive, some students from Access program, both in high school and the university, who will be presenting their show after the presentations. So, and I'd like to give first the floor to the Vice Dean of the School of Arts and Humanities to say a few words in Arabic before we start in English. Thank you.
شكرا أستاذ لاروز. صباح الخير جميعا. معذرة إن لم أتحدث باللغة الإنجليزية، ما قراوهاليش فاش كنت صغير وما قدرتش نتعلمها فاش كبرت. دونك بالنسبة لي أنا نموذج فاشل في المنهج الإنجليزية. باسم عميد كلية الآداب الذي يقدم اعتذاره لأنه خارج من هنا، اسمحوا لي أولا أن أرحب بكم جميعا. أبدأ بالسيد رئيس الجمعية المغربية لأساتذة اللغة الإنجليزية، الزملاء أعضاء هذه الجمعية، أساتذة الكلية، طلبة، ولكن بالخصوص أريد أن أرحب بتلاميذ التعليم الثانوي الذين شرفوا هذه المؤسسة. مرحبا بكم فيها، وأتمنى أن تأخذوا على فكرة إيجابية. بدءا لا بد أن نؤكد على أن هذه المبادرة هي مبادرة طيبة وجيدة. طيبة أولا لأنها تجمع ما بين شعبة اللغة الإنجليزية وجمعية لها قيمة وطنية ودولية. مهمة لأنها تجمع تجربتين، تجربة عليا اللي هي الجامعة، ولكن كذلك تجربة التعليم الثانوي التي نعتقد أن التلاقح فيما بينهما سوف يعطي النتائج المرجوة بالنسبة للطلبة، ولكن كذلك تجربة بالنسبة لأساتذة جامعاتنا الذين يمكن أن يتعلموا كثيرا مما يجري في الثانوي لكي يكونوا على استعداد لاستقبال هؤلاء الشباب إن شاء الله ابتداء السنة المقبلة أو ما بعدها. لذلك لابد أن نقول بأن كليتنا مفتوحة على مثل هذه المبادرات وأنها تدعمها وتشجعها. نتمنى لكم مقاما طيبا، نتمنى أن تستفيدوا كثير كما قلت من خلال تبادل التجارب. وأنا ما أعجبني وقفت عنه هو أن نجد هذه القاعة ملونة بهذه الرسوم التي هي تعبير على كل حال عما يخارج شبابنا من طموحات ومن أحلام. نحلم جميعا بأن تكون جامعتنا وتعليمنا بخير، ولذلك ندعو لكم بكل التوفيق خلال هذا اليوم، وشكرا جزيلا.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very honored today to be among this panel, and I welcome all the students and my colleagues belonging to the MATE, and also my colleagues here, my students and my colleagues, ex-students and my colleagues, and I hope that others will get inspired from today's from this morning, what we'll be discussing this morning, and also from the professors here that were once students. I'm very glad today to introduce the president of MATE, Mr. Abdullah Yousfi, who is going to speak about the future of learning. And we all hope for a better future for our education. The floor is yours, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to start first by thanking the Deputy Dean of the Faculty of Arts and Humanities in Magnet for allowing this event to happen, and also for proving that they are ready to share and cooperate between different sectors of education, primary, secondary, and higher education. That's a big opportunity for sharing opinions, and also sharing the orientations of education at the national level. My presentation is entitled The Future of Learning. Schools are not a good place for learning anymore. Probably, if you take a moment of reflection, the title already suggests that the future of schools is not really the classical role they have played in the last 100 years or so. I'm going to have a task for you at the beginning. I'm going to ask you to read this statement, which is a kind of flash forward to all my presentation, and I'll be coming back to this slide at the end of my presentation to answer a question I'm going to ask. It says, love makes you vulnerable because the person you love could hurt you. My task to you is, in what way could that person hurt you? Can you think of scenarios in which the lover, the person you love, can hurt you? Let that really clear. The plan of my presentation is going to be as follows. Where we stand, the position of education in the context we are practicing it right now, and then where we want to go and how we can get there. There is a scholar in education who is a specialist in education in Africa, whose name is Mark Bennett. He was asked, why is it that Africa does not develop as a country? All the African countries do not develop mostly, while in the last 50 years or so, we have had many other countries which were living the same economic and social conditions in Asia have made it, and we couldn't have made it. Why is that so? The solution he suggests is this map. He says that we are caught in a poverty trap, meaning that our education is poor, our health system is poor, our jobs do not incur incomes which are sufficient enough for leading a very sustainable life and a decent life, and then because of all these conditions, people don't find enough money to spend and make their lifestyles better. They have bad nutrition or poor nutrition, they're underfed. Children do not get the necessary growth they need both physically and cognitively. So in a way, the socio-economic position is not that purple. It looks like it's a little dark. If we zoom the situation into the teaching context and the characteristics of that teaching context, we're going to find things like this. Most African countries, including Morocco, will find these characteristics fit to their context. Large class sizes, poor literacy, few textbooks, no differentiation in class learning, means everybody studies about the same thing. We group people according to their age. We impose a specific teaching and learning curriculum to them. We evaluate them on the basis of the same criteria, and we take them as if they are kind of, similar. We got no special education needs schools. We got lack of classroom resources, and at the top of most of these characteristics, we find that rote learning is the major problem for our teaching and learning in classes. Rote learning is learning which is mostly based on memory, and if your academic process has been based on just memorizing things, when we ask you to think or do something else apart from retrieving memory, you don't know what to do exactly. And most of our education profiles after leaving the university feel that they met with these poor outcomes. I'm going to explain by giving some statistics. If you look at these graphs, you find that the majority of the 25 years old people in Morocco have spent, on average, I'm talking about the average, 4.5 years at school, no more. It's only 4.5 years in their lifetime spent at schools, with 5.3 for males and 3.4 for females. This is not surprising because if we look at the schooling life of people who are 25 years old, you're going to find that 45%, nearly the half of the population, have not been to school at all. 21% leave school after primary education. 12% only finish middle school or leave while they're at middle school. 10% at high school, and only 8% get to the higher education. Which means that, all in all, if you look at the picture of the 25 years old, they give you this kind of unqualified task force. These people who leave schools and go to the job market are met with real problems. And here are some statistics about the youth unemployment is nearly a quarter. A quarter of the population who is 25 years old is not working at all, they're jobless. And even though we find jobs, I mean, those postgraduates, we get 17% of people with higher qualifications do not find jobs, adequate jobs. And among those who are working, they are not working in sectors of their choice. They don't work because they've been qualified for that job. They only find jobs that are under their qualification. That's what we call underemployment. We got some figures in the 2016 statistics. We had about 1,065,000 people who were underemployed. And in 2017, we had a growth of about 20,000 people who were not even finding jobs. Why is this? Why did we come to this situation? It's because our schools have not changed at all, while all other sectors in life have changed. In the last 100 years or so, we have seen many changes. TV formats have changed, cars have changed. I mean, even architecture has changed. Lifestyles have changed, you know. People, the way people look after themselves, cater for themselves, have changed. We are consuming more art than we used before. If you look now at the youth in the streets, mostly they are living this art and consuming art even physically. People are more concerned with showing their muscles, with having a special haircut, where they style their haircut to show that there is some kind of design that I like. The clothes have changed, everything has changed, but schools have remained the same. If you look at these two pictures, we are comparing or contrasting school with a factory, and mostly there is a big correspondence between these two. Factories use bells to announce the entrance and the exit from work. Schools use that as well. We ring the bell before people come in. People sit in rows. You do the same thing in classrooms. You have an instructor and people who are listening to the instructions. The same thing happens in the classroom. You have people who are sitting there to listen to instructions and orders, everything. All these situations are similar at these levels. And in that sense, schools become like manufacturing of apparatuses for specific curriculum. Means there is a curriculum chosen by the state, and all people have to take that curriculum. If you comply with the instructions, you become successful and consequently useful. If you don't comply, then you become useless. You are not useful. And by this process, schools become elements of social suppression and exclusion. We all know that individual people are not the same. We have differences. We have our uniqueness as individuals. We have different passions. We have cultural diversity. We have different intelligences and so on. But school does not recognize all that. When you come to school, you are treated the same. And you have to be formatted because they think that it's the only institution capable of making you someone who is useful in the future, and it prepares you for life, for active life, for social life, and in the sense that they're qualifying you in terms of skill given. The evaluation is done like this. You have a curriculum and you have benchmarks for evaluating whether they're useful or good. There is this exam which stands like a distilling machine. Either you're fit or you're unfit. And they stamp you if you comply. If you don't comply, go out. The consequence, malheureusement, as they say in France, is like this. When you get your graduation, but there is no job. When the workplace does not welcome you because they just think that you don't have the necessary skills to get unemployment. I like this caricature because it sums it up. It says, when the blind leads the blind, you know where we go. Okay. The problem is, how can we get out of the situation? Where do we want to go? Who are the clients of the future? What do they need to learn? And how do they want to learn? Obviously, most of you know that people now are talking about Generation Y. You know what is Generation Y? It means the digital learners. People who, when they were becoming to get initiated to social life, their mother tongue was not language. It was the internet, it was Facebook, it was WhatsApp, it was this networking in general. That's kind of main daily routines they used to practice, and consequently they belong to the digital population rather than to the real one that we know. As long as 1859, this scholar called Herbert Spencer, I guess you know him. This is the person who invented what you call Baqa'ul Aslah theory and the survival of the fittest. He asked this question: what kind of knowledge is most worth? In other words, what is the proper knowledge that we need to teach our students so as to enable them to become fit in society? There is another person who tried to answer this question. His name is Yong Zhao, and he's one of the most top 10 leaders of education worldwide. He said that the best education is the one that will keep your children out of your basement. In other words, if parents invest quite a lot of money for teaching their kids, and when they finish their tertiary education, their higher education, they don't find jobs and come back to live with them, that's what they call coming to live back in the basement. That's not a good system of education. So you measure the quality of education by the chances you have to find a job. If you spend 15 years at schools and then come back with no jobs, I mean that something is wrong with the system itself. There's something bad over there. So what kind of knowledge really do our native digitals want these days? Right? I'm going to answer the first one by asking you to think about the classical conception of education. Most of our curriculums are based on the idea that people have to learn to read, write and count. In other words, literacy and numeracy compose the most content, if you want, of the educational curriculum. So either at the high school or at the higher education level. Jacques Delors, and I guess you know the president of the World Bank, ex-president, former president, said that 3 types of knowledge are important. Learning to know means if you want to learn something, you have to choose what kind of knowledge is useful for you, just not knowing anything that comes in front of you, but knowing, choosing the appropriate, selecting the appropriate corpus of knowledge that is going to be useful for you in life. And then learning to do, if you don't do something, if you don't act, if you don't turn your ideas into actions, into projects, into things with an added value, economic value, then your learning is missing. Learning to live together means we are living in a global world, so we have to be able to share all what we know with people who have the same interests, and we have to move together trying to develop our own projects. And then learning to be, which is the most important, be yourself. You have to learn to be yourself. And you know, one of the major problems for education worldwide now is what we call linearity. People think that life is linear. Our school teaches this concept of linearity. You start from primary school to secondary to tertiary, and when you finish you say, well, what is the next station? And then people then say, well, I finished, then probably death. They're waiting for death as the last terminal. But which is a bad thing. People do not live their moment. People are just engaged in a process, a mechanical process of routines that they do, which are feel connected with the different social status, and they think that is how life should be. Why people now, psychologists especially, ask you to try to be yourself, to live your life and enjoy it. It means you have to enjoy it rather than endure it. It's not live under the pressure of systems, of frames, of routines, but you have to try to think out of the box and establish your own path for yourself. Access to information means talking about knowledge. We said that in the past, knowledge was organized according to a pyramid or a hierarchy. If you want to get access to something, you have to go to a process of steps. If you come to the university in the last 20 years or 25 years, and you want to have some documentation, you have to go to the library, and you have to go to administrative process because you get to that content. Now you have easy access. You can access information wherever you are, in bed, standing, traveling, moving, when all the information you need is stuck in your laptop or in your phone, in your smartphone. That's what makes the difference about this new generation. It's a generation which has never been, which is enjoying all kind of information that is available and which the generation that have preceded us have never enjoyed. So, what are we going to do with all this information? We have a lot of information. What's the usefulness of knowledge? As a person who says that, I mean, the type of knowledge we want to know and we want to get now is the one which is useful for our own passion, for what we need, for qualifying us. There is this idea that if you spend 10,000 hours doing what you like, you're going to be excellent in your career. If you spend 10,000 hours studying something that you don't like, you only become mediocre. So the type of knowledge that is most useful is the type of knowledge that is going to boost your own professional future. Of course, when we talk about knowledge now, the different ways of getting access to knowledge. In the past it was only people or books, well, that's the version of class before the internet, and then we have Web 1.1 where people can access the internet but they just only download information. Then we have Web 2 where people interact, they can put their own comments, their own information, their own articles, their own researches on the internet. And there's also Web 3 which is coming. Web 3 is something that people expect to be like the Internet of Things, means objects talking to objects, or using what we call voice application systems. Means you're going to talk to objects and then to reply to you, because there is a microchip in the object which is interactive and they respond to your own questions and answers. Quality of education. Never in the world, if you ask someone what is the kind of education that is best for you, they're not going to tell you it's sitting in the rows, it's studying for 45, 60 or 80 minutes blocks of teaching hours. It's not one size curriculum, it's not an age group for learners, it's no real world application, it's not teacher controlled, it's not all of this. Dewey was right when he said that our mission is to teach everything that anyone is interested in. Orienting, if you want, our interest to a kind of individual curriculum for learning. For people have to choose their own curriculum and have to develop according to that own choice they make in their life. However, we know that what are the positive things about learning. Learning happens in safe environment. That's the one in yellow. Safe environment. It's a personal investment. It's real-world application. It's learning with fun. It's relevance to other lives, to people's lives. It's social in the sense that it is interactive. It involves groups. It's interesting when you ask real questions, questions in which learners are interested to find answers to. Positive environment, real audience, passion. Teachers are not the only source of knowledge, but they become monitors, coaches. People find kind of autonomy in studying, and they have this concept of agency, which means they want to self-actualize. They know that what they want to do in their lives, in the future lives, and they work towards developing in that sense. So a solution to the situation, according to most scholars, say that the future of learning is not based on a common curriculum for all, but an individual curriculum. Everybody is unique, everybody is intelligent. There is a scholar by the name of Ken Robinson who says that every individual among us is born with the capacity to become a star, to become a genius, provided that you are able to discover what that element is. If you happen to discover that element and you try to work to develop it, you become a genius. It may be in singing, it may be in dancing, it may be in reading or painting, it may be in mathematics or physics, but you have to find that element which is going to be the essence of your own personality and going to be your future investment. Learning is mostly interactive. You interact with individuals face to face or even with digital interlocutors, people on the internet, on Facebook, on Instagram, whatever. And then you have to be a global citizen. Means the place, the marketplace you're going to market your products is going to be the global market. It's not only your nation. The nations are going to lose boundary with the connectivity and internet. However, the characteristics of learners should be at least three. You have to develop people's imagination. When you go to school, you as a teacher or as a learner, you have to be able to get involved in tasks which develop or promote imagination. You have to be creative and you have to be innovative. What is the relationship between these two? Because most people tend to mix up these three terms. I think imagination is the capacity to imagine something that you cannot feel through senses. It's not something that you can touch, it's something that you conceive in your mind, something new. And creativity is when you conceive that model of the idea, how can you put it as a physical structure into the real world? And the innovation is how are you going to market that model? Our schools should move from being the teacher-fronted classroom like we're sitting now to a kind of what we call mosaic school with different sitting positions, different activities for different groups of learners. And I would like to end by this poem. It's about a person who loves, and I'm making a reference to my first slide, he loves his girlfriend, but on a special occasion he didn't have enough money to give her a precious present. And then he wrote these lines. Had I the heavens embroidered clothes, enwrought with golden and silver light, the blue and the dim and the dark clothes of night and light and the half-light, I would spread the clothes under your feet. But I, being poor, have only my dreams. I have spread my dreams under your feet. Tread softly, because you are treading on my dreams. I would say that the future of education is our children. Our children are our dreams. Please tread softly on the future of education. Do not hurt the person you love. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Yousfi. And thank you for all what you said about. I think Mr. Yousfi has, in fact, touched upon many issues that would, I think, engage much discussion okay? And I think it sets the scene for the coming presentations. Our next speaker is Professor Mohamed Zarouz, who is going to talk about enhancing learning environment through ICT. The floor is yours, Professor. 20 minutes for each speaker.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I forgot to mention first, to say a few words about the conference or of today. I'd like to thank Professor Saadullah Yousfi, who initiated, this gathering today. And I'd like to express my sincere thanks also to my colleagues Fahmi El-Madani, who's coming from Casablanca all the way to participate in this study day or in this conference. And my colleague, my ex-student, okay, we're proud to have him too, Benin Gomeshi from Kenitra, the School of Arts and Humanities in Kenitra. And then Abid also, one of the prominent Shalba teachers in the region of Meknes. And he's teaching at the pre-service teacher education program in Meknes, what you call CPR, in old CPR. And Sikhomish Amin, who is known in the region of Meknes as well, and he is a teacher in high school and a PhD candidate in the PhD program. So again, I'd like to say thank you for coming today and a very distinguished good morning to you. So I think my presentation would be a sort of continuation to the former presentation delivered by my colleague Siabla. So we're trying to see if we can enhance the learning environment through the use of ICT. And I'm trying to talk about the relevance and the impact of ICT on education. And of course, align this word with the implications of ICT for ELT. So the objective of this presentation is to provide a foundation to prepare our students academically, professionally, and socially to play leading roles in the application and management of ICT. So, as background to the presentation, one thing that we should know is that nothing is perpetual. Society is constantly changing. Our education also must change and undergo continual change. And we should understand that language teaching is not a fixed discipline. And if you believe that English language teaching is a fixed discipline, it means you do not believe in what we call a paradigm shift. In the past, the definition attributed to the word literacy was being able to read and write. And then there was a separation from one who is educated and one who is not educated. But today, this definition has been extended to include the understanding of multiple media and developing the skills to use them effectively. And it's more than that too. More than that, currently, they say that literacy is computer literacy. And it's not just about knowing about the use of ICT, but how to use the computer and how to search and use information from the net. And ICT for me is an umbrella term that can be used sometimes interchangeably with other terminology like information literacy, IT, curriculum, literacy in information and communication technologies, media literacy, educational technology, network literacy, media education, education and communication. All these terms have been attributed and sometimes they have been used interchangeably. And you know that they play an unprecedented role in education nowadays. Nobody can deny it. They have become like a commodity in our daily life. And it has been, we are influenced by globalization. And it's something that it is imposed on us. And it is imposed on the world economy and particularly on our education. So it plays an important role to effective language teaching and learning operation. And it has undoubtedly transformed the teaching, learning operation. In short, nobody would deny that it has an influence on educational institutions, teachers, parents, and students. And why, this shift, to ICT? Simply for three reasons, according to researchers. It's cheaper, it's faster, as far as the speed and dissemination of information, and it's better when it comes to the quality of programs, offered in institutions. So ICT can be used as an instructional tool in the areas of problem solving, in presentation skills, I'm sure you know that. And then research has shown again that 80% of information that enter into our mind is 80% as compared to 20% when information is presented orally. So visual information is more important then, so it can be used as SPSS programs, Excel, word processor, publisher, etc. And then it can be used as an interactive multimedia. And I suggest for our student here to use like Nasruddin Hujra, just as an example. I like this. So you can interact with the stories in Hijra, in Nasruddin Hujra stories. And just one case. Okay, but there are other interactive programs from which you can learn and enhance your learning opportunities in the classroom or outside the classroom. And research also has shown that students learn better from computers than textbooks. So they can improve their reading skills, they can enhance analytical and problem-solving techniques, skills. ICT can remedy as to problem of student boredom in the classroom by providing this technological means and medium. They can communicate directly and conveniently, other students and other speakers, around the clock, as you say. They can search through millions of files around the world to locate and access to authentic material. They can learn more or less time when they receive computer-based instruction. They enjoy, this is what research has said about it. They enjoy their classes better and develop a positive attitude when computers are used in the instruction process. Easier. What is the argument here? IT or ICT is not meant to serve as a substitute, for the mainstream of teaching, but it can be used as a means to reinforce it. Okay, the fallacy that we have among language teachers is that ICT, people keep talking about ICT, and they think this is a new approach or a method or to language teaching, but it should be used as a means to reinforce our teaching techniques, procedures in the classroom. So I'd like the audience to read this slide said by Colin in 2000. We'll give Aki. Can you read?
The introduction of new technology will change our schools, but technology without philosophy is blind, unless it is harnessed to a clear vision of change, then cheek by cheek. The technology could take us into a future that we would never willingly have chosen for ourselves.
Okay. And I think it's, as I said, it's a continuation of what Professor Saadullah mentioned earlier. And it is also stated in the E-Europe 2002 action plan that pupils must be digitally literate by the time they have left school. This is a recommendation, made by European Council. And teachers should be trained so that they can adapt their curriculum to new technologies. So there is an impact of globalization on language pedagogy. So there will be an urgent recall or call to reconsider the ELT status in Morocco. And I have a question that we can share is, do you think that, or course designers do you think that they should prepare our students to survive well in the world of globalization? And I think the answer is positive. Course book designers should prepare our students to the world of globalization. Does Morocco consider a global perspective in curriculum development? Along with globalization, the status of English has been changed from English as a foreign language or universal international language to LF. What is LF? What do you think it means? It's no longer, as I said, a foreign language, but it has become an LF. No, not FL, but LF. Simply, it's a lingua franca. This is the new orientation by, devised by Gradon in his book, The Future of Learning, or The Future of English, in his book. So we're not going to consider anymore the projection of objectives. This top-down approach to language teaching, but it should also be a bottom-up approach to how can we achieve this bottom-up approach is by involving, our student in e-curriculum or in course development and course design. So, approaches and methods of ELT should provide better chances of employability. And to achieve this, if you want to achieve this, students' needs are to be taken. I always stress this is with my student in my class. And I said, why? For simple, because first, the underlying assumption behind the success of language teaching and language learning lies usually on the individual himself. This is one. And the rule for that is that we need to understand students' needs, wants, likes, aspirations, weaknesses, styles, cultural diversities, etc. When we need to participate them, to involve them in syllabus design and syllabus development, there is no development of the curriculum or syllabus development without students' involvement in that development, in that process. So we need to negotiate with our students what they want to learn and how they want to learn. And instruction can be effective when students have a say in a course. And we have to provide, let me give an example of language courses and content courses that we provide within this institution. And I think it's high time for us, we introduced what we call compulsory courses and optional courses. Students should have a choice among different, modules and courses presented in this institution from which student can choose, not compulsory, mandatory for them to take. Why we're doing all this? It's because we want to prepare them to use technical and cognitive skills to help face challenges of globalization and to solve problems and survive socially in the globalized world. How can we do this again? I think for me there are two approaches. Adapt our teaching to our student and helping them to learn. Two should be taken at the same. These two procedures, approaches should be taken at the same time, not one at or to the detriment of another. So we need to identify students' needs, reflect upon the service we are providing. We have to reconsider even the sort of the programs who is our customers, students. The role of the university should change from a place of knowledge to a place that distributes knowledge. It's not a place to receive tacit knowledge, hard skills, or to offer training, or to confer degrees on students, but it's a forum to exchange knowledge. And in the past, we have to shift from that vision, which say that old paradigm and new paradigm of looking at the role of the university, the role of the institution. So take what you can. It's not take what you can, which used to be in the past, but now courses will be on demand. So university will no longer be university as a city, but a university as an idea. We're not going to train our students towards a terminal degree, but for lifelong learning. And the university is not a place for students who are aged between 18 and 25, but they will be learning from cradle to grave. And student will not be that person who will give us the hard time and the pain, but the student as a customer. The delivery will not be restricted in the classroom, but it will go beyond the classroom. It can be delivered everywhere. So new technologies, new ICTs can open new markets for education and for me, this is the conclusion. Effective teachers are the ones who make important connections between the world they live in and the needs and aspiration of their students. And I'd like to thank you so much.
Thank you, Silarus, for now we'll move to maybe more practical side, research presented by Mr. Hisham Abidi, entitled Investigating the Effect of Institutional Support on Professors' Use of Modern Technologies in Teaching Practice. The floor is yours, Mr.
Okay, so thank you so much, Mr. the Chairperson. First of all, I would like to express my sincere thanks and special gratitude to Professor Dr. Mohammed Larouz, okay, head of the English department here at the Faculty of Letters and Human Sciences, Meknes. Also, I would like to thank Mr. Abdullah Yousfi, the president of the Moroccan Association of Teachers of English. My sincere thanks are extended to the members of the organizing committee for holding such an interesting educational event in which both teachers and students are given the opportunity to discuss different educational issues related to the field of applied linguistics. My presentation is about the effects of institutional support on professors' use of modern technologies in teaching practice. The outline of the presentation will be the following. Okay, so it is an introduction, review of literature, methodology, and then the main findings and the conclusion. As you know, that no one can deny the fact that computer technologies have become an important part in our daily lives. Okay, whether we touch a computer or not, it is almost impossible to escape its daily influence on us. So, because of the great impact of these modern technologies on individuals and societies as a whole, educational institutions including primary schools, middle schools, high schools, universities, training centers, language centers, and others have decided to bring these technologies into the classroom. Of course, so many reasons have been proposed to account for this tendency and inclination. One of the famous researchers, Hart and al. 2002, in fact provides two main reasons to account for the fact that these institutions have decided to bring technologies and the internet connectivity into classroom practice. First, people believe that these technologies provide more opportunities for students to, in fact, be engaged in the process of learning, okay? And they also contribute to promote student-centered learning. This is the first reason. The second reason, students should be well prepared to face the challenges of the future. I mean that the labor markets demand, in fact, students who have technological skills and who are able to use these various technological devices. This simply means that the increasing demand for the workforce, which is capable of matching the job market's needs, has compelled various educational institutions to change their teaching practice and adopt technologically based instruction. Actually, technology has changed education, as we know, especially the learner. So the students of the 21st century have directly been affected by these different technological devices because they are used to the instantaneity of hypertext, download music, mobile phones in their pockets, a library in their laptops, the instant messaging and the use of social media networks, especially Facebook, Twitter, and other highly sophisticated softwares. Therefore, as teachers, we are required and requested to bring these technologies into the classroom in order to help our students to achieve well. So it is clear from what we have just said that technology plays an important role in the process of learning and teaching. So previous studies, okay, or we can say previous literature related to the use of these modern technologies in education, in fact, have indicated that the use of these modern technologies can be beneficial and advantageous for both students and teachers. These technologies help students to promote in fact their learning, okay, and also it boosts their motivation. For teachers, it promotes their professional development through adopting new and innovative educational approaches. So because of these benefits and because of many other advantages that can be reaped if these technologies are effectively and efficiently integrated in the classroom, the Moroccan government recognized the importance of using these technologies in our classrooms. And yeah, as you know, that the Article 10 of the National Charter for Education and Training of 1999 stresses the importance of using these technologies in our classrooms. So as a result of this policy, previous Moroccan government initiated and launched different technological projects, okay? And these are some of the projects that were initiated by the previous Moroccan governments, such as Marwan, Morocco Wide Area Network, CVM, the Moroccan Virtual Campus, CAT, Computer Assisted Teacher Training, and ALIF, Advancing Learning and Employability for a Better Future. And the last one is, which is in fact, that was in fact the first one to be launched by the Ministry of National Education, GENI, Generalization of IT in all educational institutions. It is worth mentioning here that these technological projects were initiated and done in collaboration with USAID, the American Agency for International Development. These technological projects were built around two main axes. So the first axis, in fact, stresses that the government should provide appropriate and sufficient technological infrastructure in the form of computers, laptops, printers, data shows, projectors, and other highly sophisticated technological devices. This is the first constituent. Concerning the second constituent was, in fact, the provision of appropriate and ongoing training for teachers to make them able to use these technologies effectively and successfully in classroom practice and for pedagogical reasons. It is necessary to state that in spite of the huge amounts of money that have been spent on these various technological devices, the results were not satisfactory. I mean that the results were not up to the expectations of all pedagogical actors, including policy makers, administrators, students, parents, and even teachers themselves. And this, in fact, was due to the existence of so many barriers and obstacles that impede the effective use of these technologies for educational reasons. This research, in fact, this presentation intends to provide satisfactory answers to two basic research questions. So the first one is, what is the level of institutional support that is provided for professors in different Moroccan universities? And the second research question is this: is there any statistically significant relationship between the level of institutional support and the integration of technologies in our classrooms? So from the previous research questions, we can develop the following null hypothesis, and we state that there is no statistically significant correlation between the level of institutional support and the technology integration in our classrooms. And it is clear from these research questions and hypotheses that there are two main variables. So the dependent variable is teachers' use of technology integration in teaching practice, and the independent variable is the level of institutional support. Okay, it means we believe, as a researcher, we believe that the level of institutional support affects teachers' willingness to use or refrain from using these technologies in their classrooms. Concerning the instruments used to collect the data here, the questionnaire and then the SUMI structure interview. The statistical procedures that were used to answer these research questions, descriptive statistical analysis of percentages, means, and standard deviations were employed to answer the first research question, and Pearson product moment correlation was used to answer the second research question and then test the hypotheses. So concerning the population and the sampling, the participants are in fact professors of English language working in different Moroccan universities, and the sample is 163. So as you may observe from this diagram, that the majority of the participants belong to four main universities: Moulay Ismail University, Sidi Mohammed bin Abdullah University, Ibn Tufayl University, and Mohammed V University. Concerning the teaching experience, the majority of the participants have more than 20 years of teaching experience. As far as the computer skills, about 54% of the participants have average computer skills. The main findings regarding these different research questions. The results of this study revealed that there is a low level of ICT integration in our universities by professors of English language in different Moroccan universities, with an overall mean of 1.74 out of 4. Okay, several, in fact, explanations have been provided by various interviewees in the qualitative side of this research paper. Some of the researchers, some of the participants, for example, stated that this is due to the fact that there are so many barriers, namely lack of technological equipment, lack of internet connectivity, lack of time, lack of administrative support, insufficient technical help, and the absence of financial incentives. Another participant said, I think there are two main barriers which prevent effective computer technology integration in Moroccan institutions. The first has to do with financial issues, in the sense that a huge budget is needed to provide most institutions with necessary technology materials. The second one, and the most essential, has to do with the human resources. A large number of teachers are either reluctant to use technology, or they are unable to use it because they do not know how. Concerning the level of institutional support, the results revealed that most teachers receive little encouragement from their institution, and with an overall mean score of 2.22 out of 5. And again, some participants in the interviews stated that this can be attributed to the fact that the financial resources guaranteed by the Ministry of Higher Education to the various projects aiming at boosting computer technology implementation in different universities are insufficient to equip these institutions with the necessary infrastructure and materials. Another participant stated that this can be mainly attributed to the fact that Morocco is considered to be part of the third world, which faces several economic, social, and educational challenges. As far as the correlation analysis, that is to say, investigating the relationship between the level of institutional support and the level of ICT integration in our classrooms, it is worth mentioning, as I have already stated, that Pearson-Product's moment correlation was used in order to test the hypothesis and answer the question. And since I see that there are some master students here with us, so there is no harm to state that Pearson-Product's moment correlation may range from +1 to -1, okay? A correlation of +1 indicates that there is a negative relationship between the dependent variable and the independent variable. That is to say, as one variable increases, the other one goes down. However, a correlation of +1 indicates that there is a perfect positive relationship between the dependent variable and the independent variable. This simply means as one variable increases, the other variable increases as well. However, a correlation of 0.0 states that there is no relationship between the two variables, okay? And you say the closer the correlation to +1 or -1, the stronger the relationship between the two variables. So as indicated in the table here, the correlation coefficient is equivalent to 0.59, which indicate that there is, in fact, a strong positive relationship between the level of institutional support and the level of ICT integration in our Moroccan classrooms. That is to say, as the level of institutional support increases, the level of ICT integration is going to be increased automatically, okay? So if we really would like our institutions to welcome technologies, we need to pay close attention to this variable, which is the level of institutional support. And since the p-value, which is equivalent to 0.0, is smaller than the alpha level set at 0.01, we have enough statistical evidence to reject the null hypothesis and accept the alternative hypothesis, suggesting that there is a strong relationship between the two variables. This is in fact well represented in this scatter plot, and of course this scatter plot tells us so many information. The first one, the type of the relationship between the two variables is positive, because as you see that the data point trend from lower left to upper right, and also it is strong because the data point clustered around the regression line, that straight line. You see the tighter the data point clustered around the straight line, the stronger the relationship between the two variables. But there is an important figure there, which is 0.35. It refers to the coefficient of determination, sometimes called the R-square. This might be interpreted as follows. Okay, so 35% of the variability in professors' use of ICTs can be explained by the level of institutional support. So it is a very influential and significant factor that should be taken into account by the university and also the other educational institutions if we want to achieve successful and effective integration of modern technologies in our different institutions. And finally, as a conclusion, I really would like to state that, as you know, technology integration is a complex process, okay, that is influenced by several variables, okay, ranging from the teacher or the school setting, and equipping schools and institutions with different technological devices does not guarantee creative and effective technology integration, nor does it transform teaching practice into student-centered pedagogy or constructivist pedagogy. Okay, as you know that technology in fact increases our knowledge base rapidly, but we must, I mean teachers must not only teach students how to learn, but they also need to teach them how to effectively make use of these modern technologies for their educational benefits. Okay, so finally I would like to conclude with this quote said by John Dewey, a university professor in the United States. If we teach today's students as we taught yesterday's, we rob them of tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sir Abidi, who moved from theory into some practical sides of the issue. Now we will move to our colleague, Si Medeni, I think, who is going to present textbooks don't have meaning, but teachers give meaning to textbooks.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends and colleagues. That I think the first conclusion that we can draw from the presentation this morning is that we will never stop talking about problems in this country. I think that we're managing crises in education rather than focusing on the most important things in the world of in education. Well, I'm going to talk about another problem, and it's a serious problem. It's a serious problem because it concerns one of the most important tools that we all teachers use. And this tool is the textbook. Well, let me ask you a question first. Do you think that if two ladies bought the same ingredients, the same vegetables, the same meat, and then went home and used the same tools to cook, would they cook the same thing? That is, would they cook the same delicious tagines, or tagines would be different? Automatically will be different. They would be different. And of course that's the story of textbooks. That is, two teachers using the same textbooks might not produce the same results. And of course the problem is that when a textbook is used for more than 12 years, and that's the story in our country. If we talk about textbooks of English, they have been with us for more than 12 years, and it's a serious problem. And of course, it's a serious problem in the sense that we get bored, we get sick of that. And of course, when you get sick of those, that your main tool, then boredom gets in. And of course, boredom does a lot of things. It kills the teacher's creativeness. And of course, if the teacher's creativeness is killed, you cannot guarantee learning. There will be no learning, because the person who is supposed to help, to push learning to take place, is already sick of his or her main tool. And of course, we're lucky enough that normally books should be changed after, that is, every other 4 years. But I don't know why we haven't changed these textbooks until now. There is a problem. And of course, why should we change textbooks? The first thing is that textbooks have a very short shelf life. Just like talking about supermarkets, there are some products that should not be there for more than 24 hours. And I think that the short shelf life of books is kind of for, especially nowadays, with technology that my colleagues have been talking about, Silaruz and Silabidi, that is, technology makes so many things obsolete. So, that is, books become obsolete, and of course, the teacher's job becomes so difficult in that he or she tries to convince the students that, oh, this is very interesting. It's not interesting. Those books are old, and we have to get rid of them as soon as possible, because fame is fickle. That is, you're trying to convince the students that that person was a great, for example, footballer, or a great, I don't know. But so this is a serious problem. That's one thing. That is, books need to be changed from time to time. The second reason why we should change textbooks is that using a textbook for a long time pushes you to develop some kind of harmful automatic reflexes. That is, teachers believe that they have everything they need to teach, which is not true. Meaning they think that everything they need to do their job is available. And of course, you even have that idea that you don't need to prepare lessons. But if you are dealing with new things, then you develop, you renew your skills, and you try to produce something new, etc. But if you use a book for a long time, then even if you try, even if you want, then there is something that holds you from using what you can produce as far as creativeness is concerned. Well, this is the problem. There are so many reasons why we should change textbooks, but these are, for me, the most important reasons. But before we talk about what we should do, there is a problem, we have to do something. And I think great teachers, as C. Larus was saying, that effective teachers, and he was, that is using technology and lots of things. I think I would like to talk about two specialists that I like a lot, and I think that they, it's like it's like classics is what they have done. Swain and Krashen. Swain, she argues that communicative competence. She argues that learners need to be pushed towards the delivery of a message that is conveyed precisely, coherently, and appropriately. And of course, with an old textbook, sometimes it's going to be very difficult to do such a thing. But as for Krashen, he believes that learning occurs when learner receives comprehensible input. And of course, the conclusion that we can draw is that from these 2 points of view is that learning happens when both comprehensible input is received, and of course comprehensible output is produced by the students. But who pushes this comprehensible output? It's the teacher, and of course the teacher who just uses an old book, and I'm not just putting the blame on an old book, but I'm gonna explain those things later. So of course he's gonna suffer, and his or her students will suffer from that. And remember that the output is much more important than the input, because learning in general is what? Learning is not how much you get in. And that's the problem in our country. I'm 100% sure that 99% of what happens is learning is how much you get in. And even the students believe in that. There is some students judge some teachers sometimes by the amount of time they talk in class, which is not true. A teacher should talk less than the students. And I think the less he talks, the more those students are gonna talk, and of course that's the aim behind teaching. So what should we do? If we take these two things into consideration, we have an old textbook, and of course we need to do something. Some teachers are great teachers sometimes, and they take the decision not to use that textbook at all. And of course they provide their own teaching materials to satisfy the needs of their students, etc. So maybe this is the solution. Of course, and supplementing. I think that there are some terms in our trade that are just used like that, supplementing. And for some people, supplementing simply means, well, you find a text, then it goes into the classroom. But for me, there are 3 steps for supplementing. There is this first. You cannot just supplement like that. Pre-supplementing involves, or it's part of long-term planning. And of course, this is also, again, another problem in our, let's say, in our education, in the sense that we rarely do a planning for the year. For example, we have how many weeks in a year, and then what am I going to do in the first 4 weeks, and this and that, etc. So there is this problem, and planning is much more important than or planning is much more important than plans. You know that planning is everything, but plans are nothing if you and I will explain this. So when you have a plan that is a lesson plan, for example, and you get into the classroom, and then you start working with that lesson plan, and then you find out, for example, you give students an activity, and then they start producing, they start giving the results you want to see. Are you supposed to continue with that lesson plan and teach those things? Maybe you should just, to help with that lesson plan, and start, that is, let the students do what they are supposed to do. So for pre-supplementing, you have to know, the most important thing is to know the students' needs, their level, etc. And you are their teacher, so you have to know exactly what would work and what should work, and it's not just by clicking on a button on your computer and downloading a document. So it has to go, it has to be part of long-term planning so that it has meaning. And I just talked about why supplementing. When you get into the classroom, and then of course you as I said, you believe that you see that the students started speaking English and discussing a topic, but you still have a lot of other things to do. You might just not follow that lesson plan to the letter, because the aim behind teaching is already being achieved, so you just forget about that. So you have to have that sense of planning and changing things whenever the need is there. What do you think is related to post-supplementing? Another term that we use a lot in this country, in many parts, but I hope that research would focus on this: reflective teaching. Yeah, we talk about it a lot, but tell me, how can we reflect? What is reflecting on our teaching? Maybe, just think about that. But what is it exactly? And I don't think there is a lot of research on that. And I think if there is researchers can focus on this and maybe come up with some of the ways and some of the techniques to talk about this reflective teaching, or what we should do to reflect on what we have done. And of course, so I'm going to just say, we have to reflect, see what worked and what what has worked and what has not worked, so that we can, next time you decide to supplement your the textbook or bring something into the classroom, you make the right decision. So supplementing is not a product; it is a process. It's not something that is ready-made, but it's something that you have to work on. Sometimes that is you go back to a teaching material that you have used, and then try to change the things that you have done. And of course, I think my friends has been talking about the lack of help or support from the institutions for teachers. Let me talk about training again. Yeah, I think that training, unfortunately, again, I don't know why I'm negative this morning. Training again, I think that training in most of the time is just gathering. In so many parts of this country, training means gathering people, but the real training is not really there. That is, we have to do something about that. Maybe some people come for 2 or 3 days, but then what should have been, what they got or what they get is usually available, is already available somewhere. And then of course we have to find ways of real training of teachers. And training means that we have to help those teachers develop good habits of teaching. And good habits, for example, as far as my presentation is concerned, is how to supplement a textbook. And then it should be focused on one thing, not talking about too many things, but just focusing on one aspect of teaching. Let me tell you, how many present perfect lessons are taught in Morocco in 1 month? Do we get to how many, do you think, I know that there are some excellent teachers somewhere doing great job teaching that tons, but do we get to that information? I think that this is also something missing in that. That is, what do some teachers do to teach this? So if we could get to this good practice, if we could share this good practice, I'm sure that we can produce, or we can help have better teachers in the futures, and the teachers we want to see in our classrooms that can take risks and introduce technology, etc. And one thing I would like to say about technology, Bill Gates says that technology, if you add technology to nothing, you will get nothing. There is, technology is good, yeah, there is, everybody wants to, but if you have nothing, that is, if you don't have anything, then technology will not help you. It will stop you. That is, you will make blunders rather than just mistakes. So we have to train these teachers, but in the right way. Of course, this is another topic. I'm not gonna just give more details about this. And of course, we want these teachers to, B.F. Skinner says that education is what remains when what has been learned is forgotten. And of course, for me, bad or good habits represent what remains when what has been learned is forgotten. That is, and sometimes we talk about experience, a teacher of 20 years experience. Sometimes you find that experience, you got 1 year of experience. Ça veut dire 20 fois 1, repeating the same thing 20 years. And that's not experience. That's something else. It's another story. That is, how can we get that experience is by changing those textbooks, introducing new teaching materials, and trying to, because that teaching material is your challenge, and when there is something challenging, then you can produce, you can create, you can, and even your students themselves can create a lot of things. So, because there are some bad habits, we have to help those teachers and learn those bad habits, and that's what I think the main job or the main task of the trainers is, to help those people and learn some bad habits, and of course by helping them learn some new habits. And of course the new habits will take the place of those bad habits with the passing of time. Of course we should not forget the students. Learner training, that is, we have to train even students for learning. that is on how to learn. We should help them become in charge of their own learning. And I think that so many teachers have started doing this, and it gives some good results somewhere. And of course, maybe I could just talk about project work. But unfortunately for so many people, I think I have my children in school do research on this. That's project work. There is do research on Asimov, for example. What the hell are you talking about? There is, you ask a student to do something, research, that is, they are going to copy and paste those things and then they bring them. Do you think that project work? That's nothing. Project work has so many steps. That is, you have to follow a number of steps. And of course it needs, it involves the students do research first, they meet together, and of course it can be done outside the classroom, and it has meaning. Group work has more meaning when it is done outside the classroom, because those people do research, discuss their findings, then they decide on the schedule to do every part of that research, and then of course they have to present the results and the findings, etc. See how much they're going to learn from that. If, of course, but I've never seen, that is, I'm talking about primary schools, these private primary schools in our country, this virus again, never, that is one part of the project work this week. For example, you can have a project work for 8 weeks or 10 weeks, and then for each week you can work on something. Teach the children how to do research, how to do. The problem with technology is what? It has given us a lot of information, but what is the problem? We don't know how to use that information. That is, how to evaluate that information. I think that Abdullah Yusfi was talking about the schools nowadays. I think the school nowadays should teach or should show children how to use that information, etc. Well, the conclusion is that do I still have some time, or? Yeah. Okay. So the conclusion is that I just would like to say that there are some teachers to whom you give the best textbooks in the world and they turn them into the worst textbooks. And there are some teachers to whom you give the worst textbooks and they turn them into the best textbooks in the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Madani, for these insightful ideas. And I think you were not negative, but it shows your concern about education. Now we move to Mr. Bani and Mr. Kumish, who are going to present their talk entitled Open Educational Resources, New Possibilities for 21st Teaching. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, friends, colleagues, ex-teachers, distinguished audience. Before I start, I have a word of thanks to Professor Ladders first, and then I will start my presentation. Thank you for your steadfast diligence to teaching. I'm reflecting here upon master studies. You're making us all comfortable with your approachable personal demeanor. Words are powerless to express my gratitude to you. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. My gratitude to you for all you have done, which I will never forget, of course. Okay. My presentation is going to be about open educational resources. I'm going to be shaking some ideas that have already been presented. Professor Abdullah Yusfi presentation about digital natives, and I think that there is, I want to draw his attention that there is a hot debate about the validity of not the digitality, the nativity, but the digitality of the natives. It's been discovered in the Moroccan context that the natives, or the millennials as we call them, do not have of digitality except the manipulation of ICTs. And of course, this is open again to discussion and debate. Well, the presentation outline is as follows. Okay, I have an introduction, definition of the open educational resources, how open are open educational resources, Creative Commons licenses, copyright versus copyleft. And again, this is going to be again shaking off Professor Madani's presentation about textbook. Whether really textbooks exist, and even schools, the concept of school, will it stay, or will we imagine ourselves in the future without schools? And motivations behind the use of open educational resources, types of open educational resources, what open educational resources are and what they are not, and a conclusion. Well, education nowadays is viewed in an open way, and you kept hearing on social media or everywhere about openness. That's what we are going to discuss today. Students and teachers have become co-authors in the teaching and learning enterprise. And these changes have caused technological solutions for distance education to gain worldwide moves towards low-cost alternatives in comparison to face-to-face courses or education or instruction. Influenced or impacted by the participatory culture of the internet, this model has brought with it new concepts, and one of the new concept is open educational resources. And of course, Mr. Abdurrahim Khomish will be talking about open education, since there is a nose between the two. Okay, and open educational resources are one element in open education. Well, open educational resources have been part of the educational landscape. These are new or recent concepts. They appeared with the announcement of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology courseware or open courseware project, and there is something that was before the new appellation of open educational resources, which is learning objects or reusable learning objects. That's something I will be explaining later in the coming slides. For the open courseware, as a course that is issued by MIT, it's an open, free course that is free online, high quality college and university level material, and this material is organized in the form of course planning containing assessment tools or evaluation tools and thematic content. Now, what is new about this is that it is openly accessible on the net, of high quality, and something new again is that it carries the characteristics of an open educational resource in the sense that it can be reused, retained, revised, repurposed even, and we can take that course that is designed for one particular course and use it in different types of settings or educational settings. This brings us to the definition of OERs, or open educational resources. They were viewed as teaching, learning, and research resources that reside in the public domain, and we shall underline the public domain, which is crucial to the understanding of the concept OERs. So is the legal domain that we are going to see in a minute. So these OERs have been released under an intellectual property license. So here we have the copyrightability of the OERs. It's not only because they are open, because they are free accessible on the net, that they are not copyrighted or protected. Now, what is particular about them again is that they are free to use and repurposed. Free to use again, underlined. We'll see that free doesn't mean free. It means something else, or at least there is a shadow of meaning that is particular to this adjective. Now, they contain or they encompass full courses, course materials, modules, textbooks, streaming videos, tests, software, and any other tools, materials, or techniques used to support access to knowledge. This is according to Atkin, Brown, and Hammond, 2007, and this is the common definition that is given to open educational resources. And of course, open educational resources is related to open publishing. That's something that we will discuss later, because most of researchers at the tertiary level go open, and most of them do not know what is open. It is open publishing is divided into three types. We have open access, where you as a researcher, you publish and you pay for what you are publishing. You are paying the reviewing, you are paying the publishing, and maybe the maintenance of the site or the website. And there is a non-open publishing, where the creator or the author of the documentation or the article doesn't pay, but the user pays. I mean, in the first case, the user doesn't pay. And the third one is to go invited mode. Invited mode, this is when you have, for example, 3 to 4 quality articles or quality documentations, and you are granted a copyright for which you don't pay the whole of your life, since you are producing something that is of high quality. But in this case, again, the user has to pay. How open are the OERs? So here we're talking about the openness of open educational resources, and openness has become a fuzzy type of word for so many, but for the majority of people it has positive associations. If you take, for example, Landero, 2004, I mean, he sees that our decade is an O decade. An O decade in the sense that we keep hearing open access, open publishing, open archives, open standards, as opposed, or as was the case with the 1990s decade, which was called the E decade. You have the e-publishing, you have e-education, e-learning, e-government, but there are two particular aspects for openness. You have the first one, or the first aspect is free availability on the net. That is to say that open educational resources are free on the net. They can be accessible anywhere at any time. And few restrictions on the use. Free restrictions in the use, in the sense that you cannot sometimes benefit from an open educational resource just because it is there. There are restrictions, and I will explain the restrictions with the slide on the Creative Commons licenses. Well, there are many suggestions as to how open is openness, and we'll take, for example, the testimony of Walker 2006, who defines OERs as convenient, in the sense that they are pertinent to the goals that are set by the person who is using them. And by the way, Professor Yousfi's presentation was directed to the digital natives, and mine is directed to the digital immigrants. The difference is, digital natives is that generation that is, or the millennials, that generation that is born between 1980 and 1996. We presuppose that this generation handles well, or has a grip on the manipulation of digital media. And those who are not, or do not pertain to that generation, are called, for example, my generation, and the professors and some of members of the audience belong to the generation of digital immigrants, those who are born, and we presuppose that they are not computer savvies, and they have the minimum of competence and skills of using computers. Well, effective in the sense that there is always, and here there is a difference between effectiveness and efficiency in the using of OERs, and the focus here is in the effectiveness of the use, in the sense that there is a pertinent goal that is to be attained. Affordable, it's free access there, and it's at lower cost sometimes for the user. Sustainable in the sense that there is durability in attaining the goals of the use of these OERs. Available, they are there on the net, and you can access them whenever you need. Okay. Then we have the next testimony comes from D'Antoni, 2006, talks about more or less the same thing, but with the new addition that they are accredited. And then here you have the insinuation to the fact that OERs are not issued and not protected. They are issued under certain type of licenses that you cannot infringe. Now, you have to respect the writability, the copyrightability of the OER, or sometimes you are denied access to use it. And I will use Downs' testimony, Downs 2006, as well as Verschauer, very famous figures in ICTs. And this, this latter argues that the concept of open entails, it seems, at minimum no cost to the consumer or user. And here we underline the use of consumer, okay, use. And actually it shouldn't be consumer, it should be prosumer. Prosumer in the sense that we said at the beginning of the definition defining OERs, I disagree of course with Downs, that the influence of the participatory culture of the internet made the enterprise of teaching and learning using OERs a method of co-authoring. So the learner and the teacher co-author in the same enterprise, and they collaborate together. Knowledge is, the source of knowledge is no more, the teacher is no more the source of knowledge. Students can have knowledge in OERs. They can work outside in the form of SDL, self-directed learning, or self-regulated learning, and they can bring their own material and work on that material. But the focus here of Downs' presentation, Downs' quotation is on no cost. Yes, sometimes the open educational resources cost nothing, but most of the time you have to pay for the use of some material that are considered OERs. Well, we said that the OERs are issued under Creative Commons licenses, which means that they are protected, okay? Protected by the law. And here are some examples. There are 6 types of Creative Commons that are protected, of course, by the Creative Commons organization. That's what we sometimes think, that they are open, they are available, so they are not protected. Actually, they are protected. The first one that is out of classification or taxonomy, that's the public domain. So as a user, you can copy, you can publish, you can modify, adapt, use for commercial ends. You don't need to attribute or credit the creator for his documentation or software, and you can change even the license. The license code could be changed. This is in the liberal domain, okay? But in the under the Creative Commons licenses, the first one, CC, stands for Creative Commons. BY stands for attribution. That is to say that if you want to use an OER under the Creative Commons license number 1, that is attribution, you have the right, you are granted the right to copy and publish, modify and adapt, use for commercial ends if you like, change the code of the license, but you have to credit the creator or the author of the OER. Otherwise, you wouldn't be using it. And, well, most of us would think that it's something that is, it cannot happen. Sometimes you are doing, for example, a presentation, or giving a presentation, and you're using somebody's OER, and you don't acknowledge the source, and if he is in the audience, he can sue you. And he's got the right. He's got the right because his document is under or protected under a Creative Commons. Okay. The next one is attribution plus share alike. Share alike means that you can copy and publish, you can use for commercial ends, you can modify and adapt, you can change the license of that document that you took as an OER, but you attribute. You don't need to attribute the OER for any purpose you are using it for, but you cannot change the license. The license should be as it is. The third one is attribution, non-derives or non-derivatives. You can adapt. You can copy and publish. You can copy and publish. You can. You don't need to attribute for any purpose you are using it. You can use for commercial ends or purposes. You can change the code, but you don't have the right to modify the content. The fourth is attribution and non-commercial. This is very clear. It's obvious that you can copy and publish. You can modify and adapt. You don't need to grant the author with an accreditation. You can change the code of the license, but you cannot use it for commercial ends. Now, the fifth is attribution, non-commercial, and share alike. You have only the right to copy and publish. You don't need to grant the author with accreditation, and you have the right to modify and adapt, but you don't have the right to use it for commercial ends or change the license. The last one is attribution, non-commercial, non-derivatives or non-derives. You can copy and publish. You can, you don't need to grant the creator with an accreditation. You can change even the license the code of the license, but you cannot modify and adapt the content, and you cannot use it for any commercial ends whatsoever. Well, as we said at the beginning of the presentation, OERs are protected under copyright, and the copyrights, of course, are there to protect the authors of documentation and software from unauthorized copying or selling of their work. But since the OERs are open to reuse, to retaining, to repurposing and redistribution, now this is not actually a copyright. It should be given another appellation, and the appellation is a copy left rather than a copy left. A copy left here is a method provides a method for software or documentation to be modified and distributed back to the community, provided that it remains legal. Now, you have the right to, download any OER you like, provided that you in some cases, not use it for commercial ends. In some cases, you don't have the right to change the code. In some cases, you cannot use the whole. You keep the content as it is. But what is important here is that it remains legal. Openness here, with the meaning of free in English, is the definition becomes skewed, because in the open source community, software or documentation might not be free. That's why we use the word libre in French, which means liberty and freedom rather than cost. Because sometimes you're obliged to pay, and it's not synonymous to gratis or free of charge or free of cost. Sometimes you have to pay a cost in order to use the OER. Okay, so there are motivations behind the use of OERs. The first of which is delivery of greater learning efficiency, and again I went back to efficiency rather than effectiveness, making maximal learning out of minimal material, or making optimal learning through minimal material, supplementing, as our professor said, supplementing and adding value to the existing curriculum resources. This is, counter to the traditional aspect or traditional characteristics of the textbook. And encourage translation and localization of content. Translation, you can take an OER and translate it into your own language. The Chinese have done a lot of translation of OERs into their own language, Mandarin or Chinese. Localization here means the adaptation of an OER to the culture, to the language, and the population's needs, interests, and aspiration. And here something that is new again, that's the copyrightability look and feel. The localization here protects how the documentation and the software looks and feels. That is to say that the copyrightability ends or finishes when the OER feels to the user, how it feels to the user, and how it looks for the user. It's not what is behind the use of the documentation or the software as an OER, which is not, of course, protected. They offer equal access to knowledge for all. This is meritocracy of technology, or technology meritocracy or democracy. Offer enhanced quality and flexibility of resources. Here we stress the enabling feature of technology. support learner-centered, self-directed learning approaches. Learner-centered here, I think with OER, we no more talk about learner-centered approach, we talk rather on user-centered approach, where the user could be any type of learner, not a student at school. Okay, self-directed learning, of course, that's an instruction strategy where the learner depends on himself or herself to find, retrieve information or type of material where he or she curtails towards the end of or arrange it in the way he or she sees fit to his learning environment. And present cost-saving opportunities. They are of lower cost sometimes, and sometimes they are free on the net. Develop digital literacy skills for searching. This is again the stress on the 21st century skills and multiple skills, including higher order critical thinking skills. The types of OERs. The first one is the institutional open education resources, which are of course institutional projects, international, national or international consortia or organizations, and of course they are of high quality and they are there on the net, protected of course by different type of Creative Commons licenses. We have example of OpenLearn and OCW, or the open courseware. The second type is the individual open license, open education resources, and these are open educational resources made or designed by individuals, not only by educators, and they are delivered through different modes of technological tools. You have, for example, the SlideShare, we have YouTube and blog, and here the quality of these educational resources is questionable, and of course you can imagine the differences. The last example is collaborative open educational resources, and these are OERs created by a group of people who work together, and they grant their members the ability or the right to remix, retain, redistribute, and repurpose the open educational resource. And here we have in mind the Wikipedia, for example, or the wikis. This is the last element. What are OERs and what they aren't? So OERs are not just stuff on the web. And here we have a question in mind, is Wikipedia an OER? Wikipedia is not an OER since it is not arranged in the form of for a pedagogical purpose. It is not used for educational purposes. Unless it is designed in a form of pedagogical use, it couldn't be used as an OER. OER are not open data too. Open data, the characteristic to open data is that they can be improved, repurposed, retained, reused, but they are not used for education purposes. So they are not OERs. Again, the condition, if they are designed in the form of for pedagogical purposes, then we'll consider them as OERs. OERs are different from RLOs. The reusable learning object. This is the old appellation of OERs that is used too much in Europe and the United States. And of course, they are related to higher education policy and reform. The difference between the two is, for example, RLOs address a focused learning goal. So they are self-contained digital material that is used or designed for one particular object or one particular aim, whereas the OERs can be used and repurposed somewhere else. And RLOs are essentially OERs with permission for reuse. And we said that the open educational resources, sometimes you don't need permission, but you have to abide by the Creative Commons licenses. Now for the RLOs, you need the permission of the creator of the document. OERs are still the MOOCs. Sometimes we mix both, but actually they are different, and there are three different aspects that differentiate the two. The first one is the use of the term open. When we say MOOCs are open, it means that they are free to access. Okay? Whereas for OERs, they are free to access, but there is a particularity that you can change, you can retain, you can remix, and you repurpose the OER. They are also different insofar as form of resources. OERs are not one entity. They are, I mean, they could be text, they could be text, they could be test, they could be software, they could be documentation, they could be a module, they could be a full course. Whereas MOOCs have only one form. They are distinguished by three qualities or three aspects. The content of the MOOC, it's homogeneous, it's one content, and there is opportunity for the participants in the MOOC to discuss and chat. And there is an element of assessment at the end of each part or each week of the MOOC, which is of course not characteristic of OERs. And the audience. The question of audience is whether it is designed for teachers or for students. MOOCs are designed for students, whereas OERs mostly are designed for teachers to use and adapt. The last one is OERs, they are only one element in open education, and I will leave the floor for Abdurrahim to talk about these.
You took much of this time.
Thank you.
Good morning, distinguished audience. Sorry I had to use my computer because I deleted a lot of slides here. First, because he consumed almost all my time, and because some of the ideas were mentioned before. It seems hard for me because it seems like I killed some of my babies. I'm calling here the word that Dr. Letters usually use. Let me start by talking about open education. I will be, let's say, more specific here. I will talk. I will be brief. And I will talk about how the way I see education and some of my colleagues see education. It seems like it's one bike with one person. There are three riders, but it's only one person who has the right to decide where to go, right? And this is how I see traditional teaching. Of course, here students, they are not in charge of their own learning, and they have no right to create or to give their opinion. Sometimes this is what happens. Most of teachers here can confirm this. The students, they just push the other way, right? But now, with open access to new learning environments, we can talk about this case. The students are in the front seat. They take the ownership of their own learning, and they gain control again. They can learn by themselves. Now I would like to ask the question why open matters. Because we teachers, or students as well, they can share their educational materials freely. They can find, like what Professor Komeshi mentioned, the 5 R's. They can retain, they can reuse, they can redistribute again, they can, do a lot of things about the material. They have all the right to do that, right? And of course, for the sake of learning again. And they can build upon the works of others to enhance the quality of existing teaching and learning materials. And not just teachers, but also students. They can build on the works of others. Now you can agree with me that thousands of assignments every year are thrown because it's over. Graduation, after graduation, everything is over, so we just leave school and forget about assignments and everything. But now with the Wiley's notion, we can always use those assignments. The next generations can use the same assignments, they can refine them, they can revise them, and they can redistribute them again, or republish them again. Now, what I'm going to be here, the added value here for me is what I asked students, students' attitudes and students' opinions. It matters, of course. When I asked them, I asked them 2 questions. This is what is, let's say, good in open education. When I asked them 2 questions, and I gave them 2 possibilities, and I came up with this, a lot of propositions, a lot of answers. The question was, imagine as a student to have 2 possibilities to study a course offered by the same instructor. Which of these would you choose? An online or digital online course, or in-class course using textbooks or printed material. And of course, I would like to thank you here. There are some in this room. There are some who responded to my, let's say, survey. They ended by giving me more, let's say, answers. One of them, it depends on the student's socioeconomic background. True, because not all students can offer a computer. And in-class course in which we just discuss things and express our opinions. And here they would like to show that they should be present. And by the way, 54, this is for teachers, be happy. Students still like to attend your classes, but of course there is a possibility for them to, let's say, delve or to enroll in online courses as well. Why not? So it seems like there is somebody here who said a mixture of both, okay, in class and online, let's say, teaching and learning. Okay. The next question was, do you think that students should sit for an online placement test before they can enroll in any course? And I can say here there are a lot of teachers here in the university who suffer from something called misplacement. They say that there are a lot of students who are not supposed to be in the English department, for example. I'm taking the example of the English department. They're not supposed to be there. Okay? In some countries, they just give, let's say, an introduction to the courses that they are going to learn, and they give them a certain, let's say, test, multiple choice test, to test their knowledge, whether they can fit or not. And then by the end, the student themselves could decide whether that's the right choice or not. Right? So this is something that I wanted to share with you. This is your attitudes towards, let's say, an open education. Yeah. Now, let me one would ask, what's, the attitude of the university first? Some of the professors here mentioned the support of institutions, right? I would say that in University of Moulay Ismail, there were a lot of trainings, okay, for teachers to train them on how to use online courses, and I took part of one of them. And of course, in the main website of the university, you can find this. And I retrieved this just yesterday. You can go now and see that there are some electronic, let's say, resources, okay, offered by. You have just to go to the presidency and find your code of access, and of course you can find a lot of electronic resources offered by UMI. Okay, now let's talk about benefits. I will be very brief. Benefits are a lot. There are benefits for teachers, for students, and even for parents. And this is an example. It's Edmodo. You can just use it sometime, and you will see that there are a lot of benefits. This is another benefit is a better placement in university. And by the way, this is a university which tried that, and it was really successful for students. Right? Students were even grateful for doing that, because they just had access to any course, and they have some let's say some information about them. They learn some of the, let's say, elements, basic elements of that course, and they see whether they can, okay, go ahead or not. Right? Something else is inspiration. Inspiration for both, for teachers and for students. Okay? Sometimes we lack inspiration. We need that light, that certain light to enlighten again. Right? And of course, it's good for professional development. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mish. Thank you, Mashi. I think since many issues have been raised in all the presentations, we will keep the time allotted for discussion, though we've exceeded time but we will keep that, and I will open the list for discussion. Okay, let's start with Adil.
Okay. All right, first of all, thank you very much for this opportunity. We can hear you. Thank you for all these insightful and very interesting presentation. Many speakers stressed the importance of the social context in being successful to integrate new technologies into our educational institutions. And here, in this regard, I'd like to quote Vygotsky, 1978, who says that humans are more inclined to exhibit socially patterned ways of thinking and ways of speaking and ways of acting, which are closely related to their historical and socio-cultural context. However, these contexts are mediated by different forms of language, music, cinema, art, but most importantly by language. So in this regard, I'd like to address my question to Mr. Yusfi Adla, the president of MATE. How can we be successful into integrating these new innovative digital and mobile technologies in our educational system without being able first to engage families and parents in the first place, because they can play a very important role. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Sir Adil. We'll take the comments and the questions, then you will react later on. Abdul.
I will first of all thank you, the organizing committee, for inviting us for this honorable event. There are many issues that are raised there and that grab my attention, but I will talk just globally. When talking about ICT, there is an oppositional duality. When we talk about ICT, we usually talk about the medium, talk about the technological tool, but we disregard the population of our students. So when talking about ICT concerning students, there are those who are against the fully online instruction, and those who are for the use of online technology. And to compensate for this, for the weaknesses of either the traditional classroom or the online one, there is what is called blended learning, and this is used in with me as a master student. If you know Mr. Ahlan, we use this kind of blended learning. Within the class, we are just in the sake of collaboration, sharing ideas, and while going home, there is what is called an online virtual community. And this was my research in the BA. Virtual learning communities is one of the most sorry, sir.
Question or comment?
Well, the question that I want to raise is how to move from theory to practice. We have always been theorizing about what is the best method to use and what is the best way to use while instructing, but how to shift from theory to practice and to make use of those results, like the study that was conducted by Mr. Hisham. How to make use of these results into practice. Thank you so much.
Please be brief in your comments and direct questions too.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to thank all the members of the panel. And all the presentations were just
complimentary for me, because whenever I had a question, the next presenter answers my question. So I'd like to start just with Professor Larousse, who said that nothing is perpetual. I think this is a good principle to follow when speaking about Mr. Youssef's presentation and saying that we need to take care of our children because they are the future. So, sir, don't you think that taking care of our children is taking care of their needs? I mean, we need to cater for their needs based on what Mr. Larousse said. So that, and as a practitioner, we are all on the same Mr. Komashi's bike. Yeah? Okay. I think it's high time, just as to take care of the needs, for the leader, the bike, to negotiate actually the issues with the other riders of the bike, which are us and students, of course. And just for Mr. Madani to just actually edit or rethink the objectives of the textbooks from being just projection of goals to needs and goals that meet actually the students' needs in the 21st century. And I have just a question and a comment for Mr. Vedi. You just said that the use of the ICT, the professor's use of ICT is influenced by the institutional support, the amount of the institutional support. And those two variables, I think, are not enough. So don't you think that attitude also towards ICT influences the professor's use of this material? And of course, your presentation of the results was just numerical, but I couldn't really find a translation to the language of the field, which is very important. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your presentations, and thank you for the organizing committee. It was really an interesting event, and it was thought-provoking. So my question has a lot to do with right? Yeah. It has to do with digital learning and digital teaching. So and it's sort of addressed to all the spokesperson. So you have talked about dynamism in society and how this is projected in school. So my question has so it says, how about a digital teaching? So you have talked about digital learning. So how about a digital teaching? Why can't we talk about, for example, a follow-up teaching or an evaluation that is distant? And I think that you have talked about the MOOC and Moodle platform, and this is the example from Kenitra University, particularly in the Department of French. Why can't we talk about this new horizon like all over Morocco and in universities, and particularly in the University of Meknes? Thank you.
So I would like to thank all of you, and my question is directed to Mr. Labidi. I would like to thank you for your presentation, and I'm sure that all the master students has related to your presentation, including myself in a way or another. Although you said that there is a correlation between institutional support and the use of technology, you said it's not enough. The very fact of supplementing classrooms with technological devices and digital learning tools wouldn't guarantee a significant development in learning. So my question to you is, what do you recommend? What can we do to develop, to help develop teacher instructions and personalized learning? Thank you.
So you seem to be in favor of the paradigm shift towards digitalized network learning. I'm really happy to tell you that now there are voices that are, warning against this paradigm shift towards network learning, especially that students are proven now to be not in charge of the learning. You know that the control of learning now in digitalized learning is shifted from the students, from the teacher toward the students. Now my question, are Moroccan students ready to assume responsibility for learning especially in today's learning environments that are characterized by information tsunamis that would sweep everything. The second question goes to Dr. Lahidi. In your presentation, you presented some of the findings relevant to the effect of institutional support in integrating the ICT, and your results have shown that only 35% of that can be explained by institutional support. Now, my question to you, what do you think other variables effects into refraining teachers from integrating technology into the classrooms, which is about 65%. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. First of all, I'd like to express my sincere gratitude and thanks to the organizing committee and speakers. Second thing that I would like to stress on is my happiness about this partnership between the K-12 education and higher education. I think personally, this is the first time I attend such conferences and such consortiums or panels in which we have this marriage. And this is really a lacking point in our educational system. And we've been to many countries and we see this partnership between higher education and K-12 or basic education. From my experience, it's really important. And we have got here the MAID, a very influential organization, and the University of Moulay Ismail professors. And this is really, I'd like to give more importance to this partnership. So the second thing just about ICT. So we've been talking about ICT for a decade now, and Moroccan Charter of Education has talked about this, but we're still a bit shy or timid about the application. So from your research and from your experiences, what do you think? What are the hindrances and what are the impediments to apply this? Is it a matter of culture? Is it a matter of institutional support, as Mr. Abidi has talked about in his presentation? Is it a matter of digital literacy? Do we need something called digital literacy? And thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for meeting me all the way here. So my question goes to Mr. Abdullah Yusfi. Concerning the presentation, you have talked about distance learning, learning, and blended learning. I think there are some problems that would arise concerning these ICT babies, if you like to call them. So what is the practical solution if there is any problem that would be arise along with this usage of these forms of learning? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now we'll move to the reactions of presenters, and we'll start by Mr. Yusfi, then subsequently following.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank all the people who have reacted to different presentations and their real concern for developing or having their ideas getting clearer. I'd like to go first to Mr. Hadi, who was really making a comment on involving families and parents in the process of designing the future of education for the future learners. I'd agree in principle that parents have their say in the curriculum everywhere, except in this country. Why is that? Just because, as I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, the ratio of illiteracy is very, very low. People are ignorant. So what are they going to contribute to design of the public policy in terms of education and so on? Their contribution is not going to be that really significant, especially because they are not expert in the domain. They are not initiated. They are not learnable people. So I have a doubt to include parents in the shape they make of their image now, because they can't even control their children at home. As a parent, I keep fighting all the time with my kids about stopping using the screen time is eating up all the time of the family. You ask them to come to join you for lunch, they are not there, they're just looking at their smartphones. So screen time is really a problem, and it's by hijacking our children from the concerns of the family. I think the concern of the children should be held by students themselves, by learners themselves. Learners now have access to information that no other learner has had in the previous time, previous generations. So I think they are well equipped with enough information to decide on their own destiny. Nobody needs a coach now. That accessibility to connectivity, to internet, to all form of information is at your fingertip. You just click on Google, and that's your best orientor, that's your best coach, that's your best friend. You get different opinions on that. The next reaction goes to CJML, taking care of learners' needs. Half of the answer is in the first answer I gave to Saadi, because no one knows the learner's need now, especially in the future generation, the Y generation, except the learners themselves, because they're different. Every student is unique, every child is unique. She knows or he knows the right kind of life they want to live in the future. They want to decide for themselves. They need to decide for themselves and choose the appropriate path to design their own destiny. I'm talking about the next 10 years, 15 years, where individual curriculum is going to be the rule everywhere. We are starting now talking about the Mosaic School, and Mosaic School just means that people have to go to an institution called school, where we have different provisions of needs of different people. It's like when you go to the supermarket. We all go to the supermarket, but every one of us gets the needs that he or she wants for her own kitchen. That's the same thing about education. You're going to have bigger institution hosting a lot of different curricula, and then every individual has to go to the appropriate shopping center he wants to get his goods, or the most important goods from. CSAE, the last one, distance learning, practical solutions for use. I didn't get your point exactly, but I think what you meant when talking about practical solutions to these means, what are the problems before we talk about the solutions? I think these are options among many. Connectivity is there. Either you can stay at home and study via open courses, online courses, digital courses. You can do half of it, means some face-to-face, some distance learning. You have different choices for getting educated, and it's thanks to the internet and connectivity. So Harvard University was not at the doorstep of everyone, a couple of decades ago. But now everybody can go to Harvard just from your bed. You have to pay the course and you are taken. You can study and get a master's degree or even a PhD from Harvard University if you have enough money to pay for the course. So there's no problem except that it's financial. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So you see, Mr. Lewis.
Yeah, I think I have only one question addressed to me by Professor Walid, and it is related to the change or paradigm shift. So when I talked about paradigm shift, it is not meant to replace teaching methodologies and approaches to language teaching by ICT. And I said, if you look at the history of language teaching, always a new approach and method is born, is emerged, and then soon it is relegated to a second position and it is replaced by a new one. So when I talk about paradigm shift, I'm talking about the change that is imposed on us by globalization, by the world economy, by the world of business. And I say that ICT is imposed on it. It is part of our commodity. It's part of, and it is, we have been addicted, by this. So, my proposal for this as a solution is, I was talking about the reinforcement, the enhancement of what I call the environment of learning. So involving and integrating ICT in the classroom would be an added value to our teaching approaches and to the learning outcome. This is the ultimate objective. And of course, there are positive as well as negative, aspect of ICT. As there are people with good intentions and people who are evil-minded. I think this is something that is normal in the society. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sylvie.
Okay, so thank you so much for raising so many interesting questions with regards to the topic of the effect of institutional support on teachers' use of ICTs in teaching practice. And I am going to start by Mr. Jamal, who in fact asked two questions. One is related to how can we answer students' needs, okay? And the second one is about the fact whether are there any other factors that can intervene in the use of technologies in our Moroccan classrooms. I just want you to know that this is part of a study that I carried 2 years ago, investigating more than 15 variables, and this is only one. Okay, but I decided to share results with regards to that variable because in fact the effect was a little bit large in comparison with the other variables. Some variables are related to the teacher. Okay, it's not only the institution that should be blamed for not being able to provide the necessary conditions for teachers to integrate ICTs in the classroom, but teachers also should be blamed, okay? Because there are some, in fact, there are some teachers who are not willing to change this way of delivering courses to the students. I mean that they are resistant to change, and this is in fact related to, say, Abdul Wahid, who asks about those students who prefer to be taught through the traditional way. Okay, I do really believe if teachers decided to cling to the traditional way of teaching that does not encourage technology integration, it would be very difficult for them to answer the student needs. We know that there are different differences between students in terms of age, in terms of cognitive size, the use of learning strategies, even personality. Some students are introverts, others are extroverts. Some students want explanations for grammatical rules, others may not need any further explanations. Some students find that they remember things better when they write them down in your copybooks, and others feel that they remember things better if they are associated with pictures. So clinging to the traditional way of teaching cannot or may not help teachers to answer all the students or to cater for all the students' needs. Of course, technology cannot replace great teachers, but it can contribute to the achievement of great teaching. As far as the question that was asked by C. Walid, I think it's the same concerning the other variables. Of course, there are so many other variables, such as teachers' attitudes, their age, teaching experience, computer skills, and so many other variables that can affect the use of modern technologies in the classroom. Munia, in fact, is asking about whether there are recommendations. Of course, there are so many recommendations. You see, after observing a piece of software in action, or after attending a study day like this one, or a conference, the majority of teachers are eager to bring that technology into the classroom. Okay? However, they are in need of appropriate and ongoing training. So this is one of the recommendations. Universities and educational institutions should provide the necessary and adequate training for teachers in order to be able to integrate these technologies in their classroom. Training programs which only offer basic computer skills are not sufficient. These training programs should go beyond the mastery and the acquisition of the basics. Instead, they should aim at the acquisition and the mastery of other significant educational techniques associated with planning the courses, designing the teaching activities, and delivering the lessons, or even evaluating technology implementation. Okay, so it is. Thus, it is really recommended that educational institutions and policymakers should shift their attention from counting the numbers of computers in each institution to establishing a clear vision on how to integrate technologies effectively in our classrooms through the provision of appropriate training that should be, in fact, I insist on this idea, that should be delivered by educational technological experts who have the ability to keep teachers abreast of the best techniques to integrate ICTs effectively in the domain. So another question concerning the other things. So I think there is research has in fact revealed that there is a strong positive relationship between the use of these modern technologies and the students' motivation, okay? And we know motivation, which is the driving force in any situation that leads to action, is a decisive factor in the process of learning and teaching, okay? So I need to stop here. Thank you.
I think somebody made a comment, or I don't think the question. Could you please just repeat the question, or you made just a comment about my presentation? Yeah, sure. What was your question about the objectives, etc.?
Yeah, so I'm a teacher.
Was that a question or a comment?
Just a comment.
No, right, sure, fine.
No. Okay. I think still one question hasn't been answered.
Yeah, I would like to answer that question. It's moving from theory to...
Yes, Abdullah Hassan Fatim Zaraz, which is a very pertinent question, because this is in fact what we need, is to move from the theoretical side to the classroom. And it's many issues have remained just in theory, and when you want to put them into practice, you'll find a lot of obstacles, a lot of maybe would you like to go? And then we'll go. We'll have a coffee break.
I'll answer him before we're done. I want to bounce on that. The implementation of ICT and moving from theory to reality, and again bounce on Professor Larouse's idea. We're talking about ICT as a tool of implementation. Actually, it's more than that. It has become recently recognized that there is a paradigm shift. And whenever there is any paradigm or any philosophy of teaching, there should be some theory of learning behind. Behaviorism, cognitivism, constructivism, and with ICT we have connectivism. Siemens, 2003. Students are connected to they are always wired, connected to their machines. And we cannot, whether the parents are literate or not, whether the government helps in supplying the schools with the material. I think, as Wilkinson said about the ubiquity of the computers, they will be there, and no one is going to notice, and who knows what's going to be created in the future. We don't need those gadgets always that are carried by us. It's like a TV set, which is at home, and it's not even noticed, in our lives. So is the computer, in the future, or the mobiles in the future. So the learning is going to be, the learning of the future is going to be digital, and it's not only the training of teachers. We're having the same process of implementation like that of England. The first steps in the 1960s and 1970s of the implementation of ICTs in those schools. The British schools. The Savage 2001 discovered that those who had a grip on the use of technology were the administrative staff rather than the teachers. They were able, to overcome the problem, and not even today, not all English teachers, in England, have a grip on the use of technology, but they are advancing. That's why I mentioned at the beginning, we're not dealing with even a digital or digital natives. We have a different type of people. It's not in the way it is portrayed in America or in Europe. We have a different generation.
Okay.
Call it whatever you like, but it's different.
Thank you. Okay, let's have a coffee break. Then we'll come back, okay?
Thanks again for reconnecting. I'm glad to say one word about the next step in the program. We are about to start a graduation ceremony about Access Students. That's a program which was running 2 years ago, and we didn't have a chance to give the certificates to students, and I hope the chief officer of the program is Russell. Glad to introduce him. He's going to give you the certificates. You have the certificates.
Yeah.
And also I'm glad to introduce his assistants, Yunus Adran. Sufyan Adran, right? He's Russell's assistant, and that he's new in the job. He has just joined RELO, so maybe I would invite you just to give him a hand of applause because we have planned to share with you some of the activities that the Access students were doing or have prepared for the graduation ceremony, and we're glad to share some of them, not all that we had in the program, because it will take too long for that, and we are only here in this room for the morning. We have up to 13 to leave. So I'd be glad to invite Access people, and I'm going to ask Teacher Hanan to tell us who's going to present the program of the Access show. Hanan? Hoyan? The floor is yours.
Hello everyone, thanks for coming. First of all, I'd like to thank Willow for giving us this opportunity, and thanks to Mr. Gibbsby too. We would like to show you some of the activities that we used to work. We will start by a song by Layla, and here she comes. I've been here before, but always hit the flow. I've spent a lifetime running, and I always get away. But with you I'm feeling something that makes me wanna stay. I'm prepared for this. I never shoot to miss, but I know like storm is coming. If I'm gonna make it through the day, then there's no more use for running. This is something I gotta face. If I risk it all, could you break my fall? How do I live? How do I breathe? When you're not here, I'm suffocated. I wanna feel love run through my blood. Tell me, is this when I give it all up for you? I have to risk it all, 'cause the writing is on the wall. Thank you. Now I give the floor to Fatima Zara and Zineb with a presentation about revenge. Accused of kidnapping and murdering a school kid at the age of 19, a lady gets out of jail after being imprisoned for 13 years. She already planned to take revenge on that school teacher who destroyed her life by dragging her in his crime and forcing her to take the blame. So when she was in jail, she was known as the kind-hearted woman, treating everyone with the utmost selflessness and kindness. And you might guess why. That actually was a part of her revenge scheme. So when she was released, her plan has already started by the prisoners who were released before her. The lady discovers afterwards the numerous crimes this criminal has committed. So she gathers all the parents of the kids and the old case detective. So the pain, hatred, and the deeper desire to revenge made them dispose easily of the criminal by murdering him in turn. Though nothing can actually compensate the loss of a child, there is something in that revenge that made them move on in their lives. But as for the Lady Vengeance, she never got her peace of mind after all.
So we may ask now,
Will revenge make us feel better? The struggle with revenge is deeply rooted in history, and people have the urge to take their vengeance as a normal and predictable thing. Maybe that's true, but revenge is something that takes a toll on the person who feels wrong as well as the enemy. Surely, it isn't a long-term solution, but a quick fix. When we're motivated to seek revenge, it's often out of a sense of fairness. If injustice has been committed, then the only way to restore balance in the moral universe is to punish your wrongdoers. The desire for revenge is all the time motivated from spite, bitterness, and an overbloated ego. And even when the goal is honorable and the cause just, revenge can create more suffering and injustice in the world. It reopens and aggravates your emotional wounds. Even though you might be tempted to punish your wrongdoer, you end up punishing yourself because you can't heal.
To sum up, the best revenge is actually massive success, as Frank Sinatra once said. So the next time you feel the desire of revenge creeping into your soul, I want you to take that intensity and put it towards succeeding. Thank you. Now another presentation by Shaima Ohariu about dropping out. Shaima?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Shaima Ohariu and I'm a student in Access program. My speech is about dropping out of school. I know there are a lot of reasons which cause students dropping out, but I'm here to warn people who think of leaving school. First of all, I want to ask them, if you live in a bad situation, do you think that quitting school will reduce your problems? What can be your horizons after leaving school? Do you think that there is something more important than school? It's sure that there is not. The most important thing in a human's life is learning. You have to learn to prove your personality and show your existence. Your education gives you a big value among your community. Here I'm also talking to parents who prevent their children from going to school or who force their daughters to marry early. Girls and boys are equal. Both of them have the right to have a good education. Learning is not a waste of time or money, as some parents may think. But, however, can we blame all these students about dropping out? I think we cannot deny the fact that in certain situations, dropouts are only victims of their own circumstances. There are some poor families unable to afford school necessities for their children. I believe that one of the possible solutions is to give financial support to these poor families. This, in my view, the responsible duty towards citizens. Countries become stronger only when citizens are given the power to embrace enlightenment, and since education lights the way. Another point that is worth mentioning is the case of low achievers and that students who face difficulties to carry on their education. For these students, education is nothing more than an unsupportable burden. To these students, I would say that you have to face the intellectual difficulties. Trust me, when you will succeed, you will know that you haven't wasted your time, but you have been preparing a brighter future for yourself. Finally, I want to conclude my talk by emphasizing my main point, which is that all of us have to learn, and learn in order to boost our lives, to guarantee our future, and to develop our society. And as Malala said, one teacher, one book, one pen can change the world. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Shaima. Now I'll leave the floor to the beautiful Driouche with her presentation about poverty.
Hello everyone. On this special day,
I'm Umema Driouche, and my topic today is going to be about problems. We all have problems, don't we?
Some more than others.
There are people who don't have family. There are the ones who don't have children. Others don't have a house where to live, eat, and sleep. But others have everything. But they don't have a reason to live or a dream to realize. Any person needs something. There are who need money. Others need to work. Other ones not just encouragement. We all have goals in life to achieve, not to give up and say, it's our destiny. Before that, you have to thank God first about what you have. Maybe you have everything, but you don't know. Another person which to have your life. Maybe this person that will look at him as the idol of the perfect life can't sleep at night because of arguing of his parents. Maybe he can talk and say his point of view. Maybe he had a big problem and doesn't know what should do. We all have goals in life to achieve, but you have to do something for this to be perfect and to not giving up slowly. Thank you.
Now another presentation by Safa, and she's going to talk about honesty.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hi. My name is Safa, and today's message is be honest with yourself after being honest with others. I noticed that relationships become tense and confused and do not last for long. And the big problem that people cannot live with each other and no one can be others. You know why? Because no one is honest with himself. And this is the biggest problem. If you aren't honest with yourself, you can't be honest with others. It's normal. We want to be always at the top, even we cannot achieve it, because we don't accept our reality. And we lie to ourselves in something we can't realize it. We try to push ourselves in the wrong way, in a virtual world. But remember, lying is a lie, and we cannot change the real life. We should change our situations for our best, and we should be our best self. And the best way is honesty. It's when we stay true, even the situation is hard, and we keep our honesty. And honest people are the ones who admit their actions, even if they will get in trouble. Because they believe that everything will be fine one day. They only have to keep their honesty. And when people are honest with others, they can have good relationships with others, because they will believe them in everything. So honesty gives us a great value that makes others respect us. And being honest shows how much we really care. It also demonstrates self-respect and respect for others. Gentle honesty is also very attractive and appealing. And the most important thing is that honesty creates a circle of love, because honesty allows us to set realistic goals and to be our best self. The same that honesty shows the sincerity of feelings that easily reach the other. So, to be frankly, I know that honesty hurts sometimes, but trust me, it's more better than lies. And no matter what events you will face in your life, just be yourself and be honest and work toward the goal, and of course that you will achieve it. So, in brief, life is a long journey. It will put us in hard situations that we can never imagine to be tested. And we should always keep our value and always remember, be honest, be nice, be a flower, not a weed. Thank you for attention.
Now I leave the Umema, and she's going to talk about the reason that makes her or us alive. Umema.
Hello everyone. Today my topic is about a question. Maybe it's gonna seem for you a big one, but for me, each one of us must ask himself or herself about why am I alive? Because there are times when our world feels like it is breaking down and is solving right in front of our eyes. And we might feel like it is totally out of our control. As we are stupid of things, we all store we're important. As we lose things, precious things, we began to understand that at the core of our being, we are worthy of existence. Not because of what we do or what we have, but because of who we are. Your life and the value you bring to your own self-expression and creativity are the most precious possessions that no one and nothing can ever take from you. There is no other spark in the universe just like you. No one else thinks your thoughts, has your results, feels your feelings, or is capable of doing things you do in the way you do them. When we explore deeply our reasons for existence, we began to know our self-worth in a way that we've never contemplated or experienced before. The essence of gratitude is appreciation for life. So your life matters because you are you, and no one here can do what you are here to do. Since you're still alive, your life has a reason and a purpose. And if there is still a breath in your lungs, you haven't fulfilled your mission on earth yet. This is why it's time to figure out what you are still doing here and go for it when you find yourself asking the question, why am I alive? So often people feel there's got to be more to life. Maybe it feels like you're missing out on your potential in life, career, or maybe you haven't found the right partner alone. You need to know that your life's purpose exists and who you are serves a greater purpose in this world. When you find yourself wondering the question, why am I alive? Know that is the most important part of inquiry one can take as a human being on earth. Finally, I just want everyone be normal. Don't be always pessimistic or nervous, please. People should live in the real world and should think about their own life. This is why 4 words keep it in your mind. Being alive, keeping alive, coming alive, and staying alive. Because we have a valid life to do. Thank you so much for your attention.
And now there's Yasin Marie who's gone.
Hello everybody. Today is the day we finish our story. The story we live together with collaboration, love and passion. Access program was a great opportunity and a life chance that lightened our life and our future. So without further ado, I will let you with the video that's made by Student Access with pride in a few minutes to summarize our experience there.
Happier, you do. Ain't nobody hurt you like I hurt you. Ain't nobody love you like I do. Promise that I will not take it personal, baby. If you're moving on with someone new, 'cause baby you look happier. My friends told me one day I'll feel it too. And until then I'll smile and true. That I know I was happier with you. Hey yeah, hey yeah, hey yeah. Sat in the corner of the room. Everything's reminding me of you. Nursing an empty bottle and telling myself you're happier on you. But ain't nobody hurt you like I hurt you. But ain't nobody need you like I do. I know that there's others that deserve you. But my darling, I am still in love with you. But I guess you look happier, you do. My friends told me one day I'll feel it
of our students, whose name Ashraf Babouri isn't here. He had benefits from YES program, and he's in the US now. We'd like to applaud him. And we're going to see three opinions or comments from Access students about Access.
Access program creates, today I want to talk about my experience here. So Access program was a long journey that took us to the next level and changed our way of thinking and feeling, and even shaped our personalities. And of course it made our English sounds more clear. But if I had to talk about all the beautiful time that we spent together, maybe it would take a long time. So Access program was a milestone point in my life that led to my future and developed a sense of collaboration and ability to be more sure. So thank you Access program, and thank you all for all of my teachers.
Greetings to all of you. First of all, I would like to thank all my teachers. They really encouraged me to improve my language skills. And taught me a lot about Access rules. It really made a fundamental history, which helped me acquire a strong personality and develop my personal skills. Moreover, I learned how to collaborate in working groups. Besides, I got to discover the characteristics of the American culture, so that I could know more about my culture and get open to the world in diversity.
I'm an Access student. My name is Bilal Garaj and I'm about to graduate. I'm here to talk to you about my experience here in this great program. So, first of all, I want to thank you because it was outstanding. The atmosphere in classes was really great because of the wonderful teachers and my wonderful colleagues. So, I want to say something, but I can't find the word to express it because it's too much for me. So I'm gonna thank you, like I said before, thank you very much, and sorry if I had ever mistaken about anyone.
And now, Salam Muais will end up the show with a song.
Of trouble, my very counts to me. Speaking words, please don't let it be. And in my hour of darkness, she's standing right in front of me. Speaking words of wisdom, let it be. 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 Whisper words of wisdom, let it be. And when the broken heart people living in the world agree, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. For daddy may be butter, there's still chance that they will see. There will be an answer, let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be.
way the light is cloudy. There's still tears that shines on me. Change the touch above all, let it be. I wake up to sounds of music. My memory counts to me. Speaking words, don't let it be. 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 Whisper words of wisdom. Let it be. Let it be. Let it be. Let it be. There will be an answer. Let it be. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, and thank you so much for your presence. It shows how you care as officials and parents. Thank you so much. Of course, we have a lot of activities, other activities that we have time for to perform, so we apologize for that, and we hope that you enjoyed what we did. So, on behalf of my colleagues, I'm glad to express my respect, gratitude, and thank you so much for, first of all, to the U.S. Department of State, especially the Educational and Cultural Affairs, Bureau, the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs, for such a good program. That is an exciting experience to promote mainly mutual understanding among cultures. And also thank you so much, mate, that we are proud of, the Moroccan Association of Teachers of English. And a special thank you to our coordinator, Mr. Abdullah Yousfi, and our supervisor, Mr. Idris Walnoun, for such encouragement, trust, support, and enlightening guidance. Of course, parents, thank you so much for your efforts, for your collaborative role in order to make of Access students such successful beings in this world, which is full of challenges, especially the cultural ones. And last but not least, thank you so much, our dear students, Access students, for your perseverance and your hard work to make such great efforts and to do all what you did or what you have done, because we are still expecting from you a lot of things in the future. So have a bright future, dear alumni, and remember that Access crew of MATE, branch of Meekness, will be proud of you for the rest of our career life. And thank you all again.
Thank you, Amina. Can I invite Russell to join me? Sufyan?
Come on, buddy.
We're going to proceed to the graduation ceremony. We're going to distribute certificates from Rado to people who work as well. Before that, maybe I'd like to just say a word on behalf of MATE, the Moroccan Association of Teachers of English, and thank Rado for the tremendous program and investment they made in this program of Access all over the Moroccan country. It has proved a very successful experience. It has eliminated a lot of minds. It has given opportunities for people to aspire for new horizons. One of them is the student Baburi, who is now in a YES program. He is in Washington. He's enjoying a full year of exchange program there, and he's happy that he was going to have a live talk with us, but unfortunately for time difference we couldn't have him in the program. I'm going to give the floor to Russell just to say a word on. The floor is yours.
Okay, great. No parents, huh? Anyway.
No, there are some parents, but they're just shy.
If you wish. Okay, well, hello, in the meanwhile. So, my name is Russell Barzik. I'm the Regional English Language Officer at the U.S. Embassy in Rabat. I am very impressed. So first of all, let me say, amazing speeches, songs, performances, pretty incredible, and it always makes me very jealous. I would love to have this much talent to be able to speak in another language that well as you have. Huh? I do. Just very shwiya. Okay, so when I listen to you sit here and give the talks you give, I just, it's very impressive. So congratulations for all your work over the last, well, two years total, right? We're a little bit late to catch you, to find you now, but we are really happy to mark your completion of your program and beginning of next steps. So obviously your story is not done. Access, yes, wants to give you a foundation, which you very, very clearly have. But what you do with it, what you do next, I don't know. Do you know? Students, where are the students? This is a big room. Raise your... You're at the back? Why are you at the back? Oh, you only came in now. Okay, but anyway, good. Hi, students. Hi. Really nice to see you. So what you do next, we don't know, but you have more possibilities now, I think. So we consider you still part of the big family. Okay, so you're not finished. Don't disappear. We want to see you. You're joining a group of about 175,000 Access alumni in the world, and about, let's say, 8,000 in Morocco, since the program started in your country 15 years ago, and now spread to operate in about a little more than 80 countries in the world. So what this means to you is when you come here, you will receive your lovely certificate, which is signed by our chargé d'affaires, which is basically the acting ambassador of the U.S. Embassy. So you'll come, hopefully receive your certificate. If you want to stand together for a photo, that would be a really good time. And when you step down, I'm going to put, this is my own personal laptop here, I'm going to ask you to, as you pass by, type in your name and give me your email that you check every day, of course, and give me a mobile phone number if you wish. And what I will do with that is to email you a link to an online survey. So you give us your thoughts through that, and we'll ask you for some more information, and this way we'll be able to know where you are, and hopefully to keep in touch with you from time to time. And hopefully we'll have another plan for another meeting at some point in the future, and we can come back together and see your friends, and possibly, you know, see where we're at, see who's working where, or studying where, or doing whatever that next step is. So can we do that? That was kind of weak. Can you? Yes? Ah, good. The singer. That was very loud. Thank you. Yeah. That's what we'd like. So I'll put this over here. Let's see. Sorry, 1 second. Mass Access FY14 name. Mobile. Perfect. Thank you. So, and, okay, we have our students in the back. Are there Access teachers here? Access teachers? 4 of them? Where are you?
Can you stand up?
Raise your hand or give a sign. Ah, okay. Good. That's it? Okay. Oh, well, that's a good excuse. She's a very dedicated teacher. Yes. Oh, no. Okay. Okay. Well, teachers who are here and who are not, thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of your work. You're the machines that make all of this work as well as it did. So thank you very much. Of course, I don't want to be absent to thank MATE as well for the administration of the program, gentlemen. So please thank the many people who contribute at many levels. And I promised I wouldn't talk a long time. So the only other thing I want to tell you is I'm happy to be joined here today by a fairly new friend and colleague, Mr. Soufiane Adran, like that? Adran. It's a little new for me, that name. It's a bit new. Who is, by the way, someone who studied in this very university. So I'm very proud and pleased to call him my colleague now. And among his many responsibilities is to visit students and young people and to describe some of the other opportunities for exchange and study that exist through the U.S. Embassy. So very likely at some point in the future, with the information you provide us, he may contact you and you may see him at another event to describe what some of those possibilities and resources are. So keep an eye out for him. Do you want to say anything, Soufiane?
No, it's just hello everybody. Thank you so much for having us here at the university. I feel very honored and privileged to be here. It's been a while since I graduated here. It's been almost 8 years now. I can't believe how time flies. But that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is you. And being able to listen to you today, I go like, wow. So this is your level now. So I try to think of you, 5 years, 10 years down the road. Oh my goodness, I would be scared they would take my job. No, seriously, I guarantee you that you have a bright future ahead of you. So you've started strong. It's really up to you now to keep that strength and move forward. And I assure you, as long as you keep that spirit, that positivity, I think you'll get there. And congratulations on finishing the program. And I look forward to staying in touch with you and probably see you benefit from one of the exchanges that we organize at the U.S. Embassy. And thank you. I think I was very overwhelmed today. Thank you so much and good luck to you all. Thank you.
Very proud of you. Okay, so I think now we should give you some certificates. Sound good? How do you want to do it? This is the study system. If someone wishes, yeah. Yeah, hello. Here you are. Sir. Congratulations, ma'am. Hello.
Father-in-law.
Mabrouk.
Thank you. Very nice. Let's take a picture first.
It's now you can say it now.
السلام عليكم الآباء والأمهات وأولياء التلاميذ ديال برنامج أكسس. كنشكروا الناس والأطر اللي سهروا على هذا البرنامج وكنشكروا الناس اللي دعموا ولادنا ودعموهم في اللغة الإنجليزية خصوصا أنهم سيلقاو مشاكل خصوصا في هذه المادة وكنشكرهم على الرحلات، وكنشكرهم على النزاح، وكنشكرهم على البرامج، وكنشكرهم على الأنشطة، وشكرا للجميع.
Yeah. Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice presentation.
Yeah, thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Shall we have a photo? Very nice. Thank you so much. Like a photo? Great. Thank you very much.
So good morning everybody. I'm so happy to be here today to thank the program Access and Yes program for the opportunity that it gives to our children, and thank you for everyone. Thank you.
Congratulations. And beautiful singing. Oh, congratulations. Were you in a video?
Yeah.
I saw you. Very nice.
Marcel?
Yeah.
You want some stuff? كيما تجلسي تدخلوا فيه عبرت لما جاء امشي لهني صباح لا هذا داخل في البروغرام امريكي Thank you.
So you're not Access students anymore, but Access alumni, we'd like to have a photo together, and if you wish, with your family and teachers, so maybe we can go outside together and the